Hello and welcome back to a kooky corner of YouTube. Today we are making some little needle felted fairy bowls. I have made wet felted pots before in my lifetime, but I have never really actually had a try at making a needle felted pot. So I thought, okay, we should give this a go. So I did a little bit of research. And look at these, you can really decorate them up. So this is like the base bowl, should I say. And then you can stitch into it, add beads into it, add sequins into it. A little bit of netting going on there. And they're kind of nice and ethereal. It's a nice big word, isn't it, for today? They remind me of little fairy bowls. That's exactly what they are. I'm going to call them fairy bowls. So for this, I'll show you what you need. So the first thing you're going to need, let me move that pot over there, it's just wobbled over. Sit over there for a second. You're going to need some wool batting. You could try this with acrylic as well, so please do have a go. I've not tried it with acrylic, but if you want to have a go at that, please do. I did have these little bits included in it, which I took out because they weren't felting down as nicely. But this is kind of like a variegated batting. I got this from Etsy, probably last year, I think. And I got two different colorways. I got this nice green, and I got this blue one here. This one was made from another, I think it wasn't a batting, it was a roving that I've had for quite some time, so I thought that will make some nice fairy bowls. So yes, you'll need some of that. If you haven't got variegated, you could just do a plain one. If you didn't want to just do a plain one, then what you could do is to mix up a few different felts together by the brushing method. If I get time, I'll show you how I might do that. Or you could just layer them together, you know, just lay one on top of the other one. It will work either way. Because I'm not sure whether I'll get time to show you how I do my brushing out. I might do that on another video, but there will be a method of that on one of my previous felting videos. Not sure which one yet, but if I have a chance to look through, I will put a link in the description box. Anyway, by the by, so you've got your batting, you will need some felting tools. So I have my trusty Clovers. This one is the 3 needle. This one is the 5 needle. Well, it's got a lock on it, so it's probably a good idea to put the lock on. And I also have a singular needle as well. I use this for going around the edges when I've finished felting it. The other thing you're going to need is a polystyrene ball. These ones are slightly used, as you can see, because that one had the felt, the wool wrapped around it. So I'm going to show you the process of how I make them. It's really quite a simple one. It's a case of wrapping and stabbing, and that's basically how it goes. But in between times, you're going to have to do a little bit of twisting and lifting. So wrapping, stabbing, twisting and lifting. 4 words. I'm sure we can all remember those, although I'm very, very absent-minded at the minute, so trying to make me remember anything is an ordeal in itself. Anyway, I'll show you on the videos. There may be a bit of voiceover to explain what I'm doing. It's going to be quite self-explanatory, so I might slip a little bit of music in there as well. Yeah, so run VT. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to wrap a fair amount of this roving wool around your polystyrene ball, and then you're going to start felting it. It needs to be felted onto the ball at this particular stage, but not too heavily. So you're just trying to hold it in place for now, and you're going to need fairly thick layers of it because it needs to be able to stand up alone. So you can layer on top, and where the thin bits are, add in some more of your wool roving, and that will fill in all the gaps. Keep adding in more roving until you're happy with the thickness and that it's fairly even all the way around, and then felt it all down, being particularly sure to check the base to make sure that that's got plenty of felt on it as well, because sometimes when you're wrapping around it's quite easy to miss little bits on the base. But make sure there's plenty of your wool roving and felt, and just keep gently felting it in. You don't need to have it solidly into the polystyrene. That's not what we want at this particular stage. When you've got it to a certain degree of holding together, then what you want to do is to take out your polystyrene ball very carefully, so you're kind of easing it off of the wool fibres. And what we're going to do is hold it up to the light and check if we can see any thin areas. If you can't see any, pop your polystyrene ball back in and continue felting. Now, you don't need to felt into the ball specifically, you're more rather trying to felt the fibres that are outside of the ball together. It will compress the polystyrene ball and you may end up with little bits of polystyrene in your work, but they tend to brush out or fall off. They're not going to cause you any problem. It's just the way of the polystyrene, I'm afraid. But yeah, just keep going, keep felting and felting it down until you feel happy with how it's going. But just keep checking it and keep twisting that ball around just to loosen the fibres so that they're not sticking into the polystyrene. So every so often I will just stop and twist that polystyrene ball around so that it loosens those fibres that might want to cling in. Now I'm getting my singular needle and paying particular attention to the edge of the bowl to make sure that that edge is nicely away from the bowl but kind of felted in really nicely. At this point you are not trying to get this to attach to the ball, you're just trying to go into the fibres, so not into the ball but into the fibres that are around the ball to get a nice shape on the edge of your bowl, and so that it's not too wispy. When it's all done, remove the polystyrene ball and then just rub the edge of the bowl against your tabletop. This will help flatten out the edge of your bowl, and it will give it a nice smoother finish on the edges. Don't squeeze it, don't press it, just rub it gently against the edge of the table. Now I've got some embroidery threads because I've decided I want to stitch into this particular bowl. So I've got a few variegated threads which I think will look nice, and just threading up a needle, and I'm going to do some simple running stitches just up and down in varying sizes and different gaps in between, just to add in some interest. I'm separating the strands of the variegated thread in, I think it's 3 each, so there's 6 strands on each of the threads, so you separate it out so that you've got 3 on either side. It's a nice weight for you to be able to stitch with. So here I am going up and down my bowl with a simple running stitch. With the stitch, I'm not taking it completely through to the other side, so you won't be able to see it on the inside. It's going through into the layers. So stitching into the layers rather than through the whole of the bowl, so that you've got kind of it's lying on top of it basically, rather than into the structure of it. You can also add in some metallic cords as well. Kind of hide the cord at the bottom into the felt when you pull the needle through. You don't need to make a knot. And then just very gently, again, adding in some of those running stitches. You can also add in some of the metallic netting or any other bits you've got. Beads would look great. You could add in buttons, any embellishments that you want to add in. On one of my bowls I had some little flower sequins. They look quite nice on there. So sequins, beads, anything that makes it look pretty, I would say go with it. So I'm sure you'll agree, these are quite a fun thing to make. I certainly had fun making them. Take a little bit longer than usual, just because you are you have to keep removing the polystyrene boards to check how things are going. But it's quite easy. It's not a hardship, and just make sure that as you're needle felting, you make sure to keep moving that polystyrene ball down, because for this occasion we don't want it to adhere to the polystyrene ball very much. We want it to kind of stay loose, hang loose, stay loose. That's what we need it to do. But then you can absolutely go to town. I was thinking also you could add some wires into these if you wanted them to be more of a decorative thing. But if you want them just to store your rings in, I also thought that if you collect crystals, as I do, then you could colour code them for different crystals and then just have them for crystals to store in there, because they're nice and soft. That's the thing about them. They're really soft and will protect anything that goes in there. So if you've got jewellery or rings or crystals, they'd work in there. Anyway, that's enough from me. I hope you've enjoyed this and I hope you're going to have a go. I think the size of these balls in diameter, let me just double check that for you. I think, let's have a look. I think they're about 8mm. Yeah, 8mm, 8 centimeters, 8 centimeters in diameter. But you could go smaller, you could go bigger. I'm not sure how big you could go. I think you'd probably go 10 centimeter diameter at the most, because otherwise it might become too unstable. Although they do seem fairly stable, so if you want to give it a go and let me know how you got on. That's it from me. I will be back at some point soon with something else. Bye for now.